Let me ask you something honest. Who are you waiting for? Because most people are waiting for something. They don't say it out loud, but if you actually look at how they move through life, you can see it. They're waiting for the right moment, waiting to feel ready, waiting for something outside of them to shift first before they allow themselves to start. And it doesn't feel like waiting from the inside. It feels like being careful. It feels like being smart. It feels like not jumping into something before you're prepared. But prepared for what exactly? Because that moment where you finally feel ready, where everything lines up and it all feels right, that moment doesn't come, not the way you're picturing it. And the people who built real things didn't wait for it. They just started before it arrived. Nobody told me that clearly when I was younger, and I think that's worth talking about. Day 2, by the way, if you haven't seen yesterday's video, go watch that first. It's called The Call. It sets up everything. Today builds directly on it. And for anyone new here, this is just how I do things. Minecraft in the background, talking about real stuff. No production, no script, just whatever's actual in my mind. Yesterday was about what's been draining you. Today is about what you do with that. Because knowing something and actually moving on it are two completely different things. And the second part is where most people get stuck. Here's something almost everyone does. When something in your life isn't working, when you feel stuck or behind, or like you're not becoming who you thought you'd be, your mind goes looking for a reason. And almost every time, it finds that reason somewhere outside of you. The way you grew up, the school that didn't teach you anything real, the people around you who didn't push you, the bad timing, the circumstances. Whatever it is, the reason lands outside. And look, some of that might be true. I'm not saying your situation doesn't matter. It does. Some people genuinely had it harder than others, and that's real. But here's the trap inside that thinking. The moment you give the cause to something outside yourself, you also give the solution to something outside yourself. And now you're just waiting for the thing that created the problem to somehow also fix it. And that wait can go on forever. There are people who spend their whole lives waiting for their circumstances to improve before they start living. And the circumstances never improve quite enough. There's always one more thing in the way. One more reason it's not the right time yet. Your situation explains where you are right now. It doesn't decide where you go. Those are two different things. And the space between them, that's yours. Nobody else can touch that space. Nobody else is supposed to. I want to tell you something. There's a specific type of person who figured life out not because someone sat them down and explained it, not because they had a mentor or a system or a perfect environment, but because at some point they just ran out of options and had to move anyway. You've probably seen this type or heard about them. The person who came from nothing and built something real, not because they were special, not because they had some talent that set them apart, just because they had no choice but to start, so they started badly, with nothing, without knowing what they were doing, and they figured it out on the way. That's not an inspiring story. That's just what happens when you remove the option of waiting. When there's no safety net and no one coming to help, the only direction left is forward, and that forces something in a person that comfort never can. Most of us aren't in that situation. Most of us have just enough comfort to keep waiting, just enough cushion to stay still. And that comfort, as good as it feels, is also the thing that keeps a lot of people exactly where they are. Because when waiting is an option, a lot of people take it. Here's the thing that actually gets me about this. The rescue doesn't come, and deep down, most people know that. But there's still this quiet version of it running in the background. This idea that at some point, something is going to happen that makes it obvious, that someone is going to see something in you, that a moment is going to arrive so clear and undeniable that it basically forces you into motion. Movies do this to us. Stories do this to us. The underdog always gets his moment. Someone always sees the potential that everyone else missed. And so people wait for their version of that, not consciously. They'd never say it out loud, but in how they move, you can see it. They're performing potential instead instead of executing on it, getting ready to start instead of starting, waiting to be seen before they decide to actually show up. And the thing is, that moment isn't coming. I don't say that to be harsh. I say it because the sooner that actually lands, the sooner something real wakes up in you. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone to show up, you realize you were the only person you ever actually needed. Nobody started well. Think about that for a real second. Every person you look at and think they just have it naturally. There was a version of them that was terrible, a first attempt that was embarrassing, a beginning that looked nothing like where they ended up. The difference between them and someone who never moved isn't talent. It's that they let themselves be bad at it long enough to get better. And what stops most people from doing that is one specific fear. Not the fear of failing. The fear of being seen failing. The fear that starting before you're ready means people will see who you actually are right now. Not the finished version, not the potential version. The real, current, unpolished version. And that they'll judge it. But here's the thing about that fear. The people who matter don't care about the rough version. They're usually too busy working on their own rough version to pay that much attention to yours. And the people who would judge it, they're not going anywhere anyway. They'll find something else to criticize once you improve, so they don't factor in. Start anyway. Start today with what you have, knowing what you know right now. Because the person you're trying to become is built entirely out of the imperfect attempts you make before you get there. There's no other material. That's the only thing it's made of. Let me bring this back to what we talked about yesterday, because this isn't separate from the retention conversation. It's directly connected to it. When you stop spending that energy automatically, it starts to build, and a building charge needs somewhere to go. It needs direction. And if you don't give it one, it just creates pressure without purpose. And that pressure eventually finds the easiest outlet, which is usually right back to the old habit. That's why guys make it a week, feel incredible, and then fall back. Not because they're weak, but because they kept the energy and had nothing real to point it at. The energy needs something, a decision, a project, a direction. And that's where the responsibility piece comes in, because nobody can hand you that direction. Nobody can decide what you're building. Nobody can tell you what your version of forward looks like. That's entirely yours. And that sounds like freedom, and it is. But it's also heavy, because the moment you accept that nobody is coming, that your circumstances don't write your story, that waiting is a choice you're making. You have no one left to hand it to. You're holding it now. And that's uncomfortable. But it's also the only place anything real ever starts from. I'll say something about this channel quickly. I don't know exactly what this is going to become. I've got a rough idea. I know what I want to build, but I don't have the full picture yet. And I used to think you needed the full picture before you started. That you needed to know where it was going before you committed to the first step. But every time I waited for that clarity, it just never came. The clarity comes from moving, not from standing still thinking about moving. So this is me moving imperfectly before I'm ready, in the direction of something I can't fully see yet. And if I actually keep that up every day this year, the videos, the training, the whole thing, I told you what happens at the end. Face reveal, real conversation, the whole journey. Not because it's a gimmick, but because by then there'll actually be something worth showing up for. But only if I don't wait, same as everything else. Let me be honest about where you probably are right now, physically, mentally. Day 2 feels quiet, maybe a little good. There's a small sense of having done something right. A tiny bit of momentum you can actually feel, even if you can't fully describe it. But there's also something else sitting in Day 2, a kind of restlessness, a low hum of energy that doesn't have an obvious place to go yet. And if you're not careful, that restlessness becomes the exact environment where the habit from yesterday comes back. Not loudly, just quietly, through boredom, through stillness, through the phone at night. So Day 2 is about one thing. Pick a direction for that energy, not a full plan, not a new identity, just one thing, one real, small, actual thing that you're going to do today that isn't the old habit. Go for a walk. Open something you've been avoiding. Sit in silence for 20 minutes without filling it. Put the phone across the room again tonight. One thing, imperfectly, without waiting to feel ready for it. That's the whole job today. Nobody is coming to start this for you. you. Nobody is going to hand you the moment. Nobody is going to notice your potential and pull you up. Nobody is going to organize things into something you can finally work with. And once that actually lands, once you stop waiting for it and just decide, something shifts, because the weight of waiting is heavier than the weight of moving. You just can't feel that until you've actually put the waiting down. So put it down. Day 2 in the comments if you're here. Just mark it. I'll see you tomorrow. I mean, in the next video. Look at the world I'm still building.